Langdon apparently showed a picture of his sister, Olivia, to Mark Twain, who claimed to have fallen in love at first sight. So, throughout 1868, Mark Twain and Olivia Langdon corresponded, communicating with each other. And when he proposed to her the first time, she rejected him. But only 2 months later, they were engaged. So in February of 1870, Mark Twain and Olivia Langdon were married in Elmira, New York. He courted her and managed to overcome even her father's initial reluctance. Their marriage lasted 34 years until Olivia's death in 1904. Interesting life that Mark Twain lived, so diverse. But before I tell you any more of this exciting story, let's take a short commercial break.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Charlie Checkers Show. I'm your storyteller today, Charlie Checkers. So we're discussing the life of Mark Twain. I didn't know that he was an inventor as well. Never knew that. He patented 3 inventions, including an improvement in adjustable and detachable straps for garments. These were to replace suspenders. Also a history trivia game. And the most commercially successful self-pasting scrapbook. Dried adhesive on the pages needed only to be moistened before their use. So I think our grandparents had those, I remember. You just put a little bit of like a moistened towel on it and it would hold all your pictures. So wow, I did not know he did that. He also, in 1906, formed a girls' club. He viewed them as surrogate or adopted granddaughters, and it was called the Angelfish and Aquarium Club. So the dozen or so members ranged in age from 10 to 16, and Mark Twain would exchange letters with his Angelfish girls, and he would invite them to concerts and theaters and to play games. Mark Twain wrote in 1908 that the club was his life's chief delight. So he really had a lot of fun with that, apparently, and so did the young girls as well, all going with him to different activities. In 1907, Twain met a Dorothy Quick, then age 11, and they were on a transatlantic crossing, and that was what they were friends for, and a friendship that lasted until the very day of his death. In 1909, I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it. It will be the greatest disappointment of my life if I don't go out with Halley's Comet. The Almighty has said, no doubt. Now here are these 2 unaccountable freaks. They came in together. They must go out together. And he predicted right. Very accurately, Mark Twain died of a heart attack on April 21st, 1910 in Redding, Connecticut, one day after comet's closest approach to Earth. When Mark Twain died, President William Howard Taft said, "Mark Twain gave pleasure, real intellectual enjoyment, to millions, and his works will continue to give such pleasure to millions yet to come. His humor was American, but he was nearly as much appreciated by Englishmen, other countries, as by his own countrymen. He has made an enduring part of American literature." And that is so true. Since his death, even before it, people have been reading all of his writings and enjoying all his satire and prose and poems. And in school, it's like required reading, of course. Lots of fun and adventurous. And he was a big kid at heart. And I enjoy him so much, probably basically for that reason. All right, before we get started with our story, we are going to have a musical interlude for your enjoyment. So please enjoy, and we'll be back in a few moments.
It's Niecy Nash, taking a break from my new TV Land sitcom, The Soul Man, to talk to all you moms out there. My character, Lolly, is a mom, too, and she's pretty fierce when it comes to protecting her family. But all moms need to remember to take care of themselves, too, especially when it comes to heart disease. It's the #1 killer of women, but you can reduce your risk through healthy diet and exercise. So spread the word and take care of yourself. Find out more at GoRedForWomen.org.
Welcome back to the Charlie Checkers Show. This is your storyteller, Charlie Checkers. And today we've been discussing Mark Twain and all of his accomplishments when he was alive. Steamboat pilot. He was a writer, an author, and a satirist. He knew presidents and kings and queens, and traveled extensively all through his life. He came in with Haley's Comet and he went out. One of his very much celebrated and first stories was the celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras-County, which I will be regaling to you today. This story he wrote in 1867. So he is telling that he, on a request of a friend of his who wrote him, he was supposed to go find a friend of this gentleman's, Simon Wheeler. And he was inquiring after his friend's friend, Leonidas Smiley, Mr. Smiley. And he went to do that. He had a suspicion that Mr. Smiley was a myth, that his friend never knew this person, and that he was only a figment of his imagination. So he was going to ask Mr. Wheeler about him and see if it reminded him of his infamous Mr. Jim Smiley. And he knew that this man was going to bore him infernally to death, to be reminiscing of him and as long and tedious, and it was supposed to be useless to Mark Twain. I mean, he just didn't think it was going to be of use to him. So in the story, if that was the case, and he certainly succeeded, apparently. So Mark Twain says that I found Simon Wheeler dozing comfortable in a barroom stove of the old dilapidated tavern in the ancient mining camp of Angels. And he noticed that he was fat, bald-headed, and had the expression of a winning gentleness and simplicity upon his tranquil countenance. And the gentleman rose up and gave him a good day. And he told him about a friend of his who told him that he would like to have come to make some inquiries on a companion of his boyhood, Mr. Smiley. And he was a young minister of the gospel. So he heard that he is at one time a resident of Angel's Camp, the mining camp. And Mark Twain told him that if Mr. Wheeler could tell him anything about this gentleman, he would feel under obligation to him. So the Mr. Simon Wheeler backed him into a corner and turned it around his chair and sat down. And he reeled off the monotonous narrative which follows. This paragraph. The gentleman never smiled. He never frowned. He never changed his voice from the ever gentle flowing key to which he tuned the initial sentence. He never betrayed the slightest suspicion of enthusiasm. But all through the narrative, he got the impression of earnestness and sincerity of what he was saying. So it showed Mark Twain that from his imagining, if there was anything ridiculous or funny about a story, he regarded it as really an important matter, something he was telling, he was believed in. And he admired two of the characters in this story to be genius and finesse. Well, to Mark Twain, of course, the man was drifting serenely along in a queer yarn without ever smiling, exquisitely absurd. So, before he asked him what he knew of Mr. Smiley, and this is what he tells him. And Mark Twain never interrupted him once. There was this feller here once by the name of Jim Smiley in the winter of 49, maybe it was in the spring of 1950. I don't recall exactly. Somehow, though, it makes me think it was one or the other, because I remember the big flume that wasn't finished when he came into the camp. But anyway, he was a curious man about always betting on anything that turned up as you ever saw. He could get anybody to bet on the other side, and if he couldn't, he'd change sides. Anyway, that suited the other man